with Bill instead of Patrick, because you know what, I may lose something in the process. And I'll end with a quote from my sister told me this, I'm not sure which prophet in the Bible. He said, you can't take anything from your brother without losing something in the process.
Ooh, that's deep. Yeah. Cedric, comment?
Yeah, it's just so powerful. I mean, I think about this even as I deal with some challenges that I deal with some younger businessmen that I'm working with and trying to do some things with. And sometimes, like I said, there's that tendency or that feeling to want to give up on the process and want to get upset and throw your hands up. What I'm learning is that we will never learn to partner if we quit. We will never learn to partner. So what we have to do is we have to put our egos in check. We have to calm down and we have to kind of find a way that says, and I told this young brother, I said, we are going to do business together. I know we have some differences and we're going to work through it. We have to be determined to work through it, because if we don't, we never build anything. We don't do anything. I mean, the gentleman was talking about how much we spend, which is $1.3 trillion annually, according to Nielsen, if not more. We spend that much, and only 2% of those dollars go to Black businesses. Only 2%. So 2% goes to Black businesses, and so there's a reason why our businesses are not stronger. I mean, we have enough resources within our own community, not to mention the resources in Africa, Ghana, Nigeria, and places like that. We have enough resources to build. I mean, everybody knows the statistic that we're probably the 11th largest economy in the world combined. Mm-hmm. The amount of money that African Americans spend equals the 11th largest economy in the world. We have the resources. We have to stop looking external, look internal. Find out how we can maximize the resources internal, right? And how do we do that? Well, sorry to go on a soapbox. How we do that? We have to understand what our community wants. It's like, not to, be disrespectful, but if our community don't want dashikis, we can't get mad that they don't want to buy our dashikis. We have to understand, what do they want to buy? What do they want? Business is about serving a need. So it's not that Black people are failing Black businesses. Black businesses are failing Black people by not understanding what their need is. We buy gas, we buy liquor, we get our clothes laundered, we buy groceries. We buy these things every single week. A good portion of our income goes to those things.
Yes.
So why is it that, over there on Easton Mall over there, that the Russian guy who owned the gas station ended up buying the liquor store over there by McDonald's?
Hello.
Right? Why is that when they're Black people that are working there and Black people buying liquor there every single week? Yeah. That's how our dollar leaves our community. So there's just lots of opportunities right in our own backyards. And the Middle Easterns, the Asians, they don't mind taking our dollar, and they take it out and they go right back to their community over in Rockville and they recycle it.
Wow.
We have to play this game like we want to really win.
Wow. We're going to take one more from Remy, and then we're going to have to move on. Go ahead, Remy. What's your question?
Yeah, Cedric, I feel your passion, brother. For someone who has been in the county for almost 40 years and part of it as a broker, there's so much opportunity here, and you're being intentional about how to help everyone is what's going to make the change. As a former vice president of a bank, I understand the working together, and having someone like you and feeling your passion right now, intentionality will help us to break that code. We can learn to work together. And when successful people like you are able to share openly and say, you know what, I'm going to help you. We are going to work together. That's the beginning of it. That's right. Why I'm excited with what Walter is doing. The leadership team he's putting together and all the things he does is about solutions. And I feel your passion, brother. And I definitely want to work with you. I will contact you through Walter and see how we can make this happen. Thank you very much.
I appreciate it. If you want, Walter, can I ask Mayor Adams a question or just?
Yeah, and then we're going to pivot. Go ahead, real quick.
Okay, I just want to say this one thing. It's amazing what we can do. I was raised in the church. I was raised in a holiness church. And when you look at the churches in Prince George's County and the kind of wealth that they amass, it's amazing what we can do for what we believe in. We're building churches. We're building schools. We're building communities. We're building, Reed Temple just built this beautiful 50-something at 55 or 60 and older community right down the street on Reed. And I'm saying we should still be able to do those things and build real estate syndications and LLCs that buys apartment buildings that
Yes.
buys office buildings while you're still in the church. We should still be able to make money and do right by God too. The church is an awesome structure for building wealth or for getting stuff done. Somehow we trust that process. We need to leverage that structure and do it for profit as well without diminishing the work of the church. And I got this idea because I was going to Jersey City, for shakedown court, and I ran into some Jewish guys, and I was asking them about what they do. This 25-year-old kid owns 5 buildings in Jersey City, which is real close to New York City, and I own a couple buildings there. And he was saying that they get all of their money from the synagogue, from the members of the synagogue, from the people that go there. They pull their money from their synagogue and they buy these properties. And they offered to try to buy my property because they bought one right next to me. But the whole point is that we have the structure there. We trust the church. We trust, our money with the church. If we can do it there, why can't we do it outside of that? Why can't every member of every church be a member of an LLC like syndications that I invest in and make a bigger return on their investment and build their wealth at the same time? I mean, Mayor Adams, it would be great to pull all the pastors together and see if they'd be open-minded enough to kind of expand this concept for building our community and building wealth within the members. Because if the church can process, if the church could be a facilitator, they will win in the end.
Wow.
Yeah, and if I could, I want to just real quick. Cedric,
Yes,
one of the things that you're talking about now, and all of us on here needs to understand, is that for a lot of our younger brothers and sisters, and even for some of our older brothers and sisters in business, it's the same thing. They got to see it to believe it. They got to see it to be it.
Right.
And so what we've got to do is what you're talking about now, is we've got to step out and we've got to do it.
Yeah.
Now, understand, it isn't easy. I, just like many of you, and I know, sir, there are those you have setbacks with. There are those who will come to you and will not be straightforward, but that doesn't stop you
It doesn't stop us.
from doing that. So
Yeah.
I'm to you, Walter, while we're on here, Cedric, you're on the spot now, because now we need to put together an LLC and we're gonna go get some business going, and we're gonna go buy stuff.
Oh, man.
No, that is not the spot. I'm ready. And what
Let them see it.
Walter, I want to make this one point to Mayor Adams, and that is I invest in a syndication here in Miami, Florida, and this guy buys 300, 400 unit apartment buildings in Colorado, Texas, and in Florida. And he has 400 investors, and all the investors put up $100,000 per investment. And the guaranteed return ranges anywhere between 7% and like 10% on some of them. And on the back end, he raises rents 5%. He has a capital X where he basically makes improvements to the properties. And in 5 to 7 years, he sells the property. It's like a flip of a big apartment building. These apartment buildings are $40 to $60 million in revenue. And he raises $20 million in 24 to 48 hours. He gets commitments, people follow through and they buy it. This gentleman is a good friend of mine, and he was going to speak at the Black Wealth Summit if we're going to go live. I could get Steve to come in and explain the concept. This is what people do all across the country through real estate syndications to build wealth. And he understands my passion for Black wealth because I've talked to him directly about it. But I'm saying is I'm down, and I really want to show people that this works, and it's tied to a real asset. It's not an asset that's going to disappear.
Right.
This is a real piece of property that you're actually buying. And that's what I just wanted to share.
Thank you, Cedric. Well, evidently, we need to have another show on this because there's a lot of interest in this, Cedric. So we're going to need to do something again as Patrick nods his head. This is a lot of good information. So Cedric will be coming out with a book. He'll have a book tour. I'll be a part of that process. As you can tell, Cedric's very passionate about it. He's changing the game, folks. So we're going to continue to dialogue. So why don't we just pivot to our next presenters or host here. Cedric, thank you so much. Give him a round of applause, everyone, please.
Thank you.
That
Thank
was
you.
very informative, Cedric, and the
Walter,
passion.
thanks for having me. I got to give a shout out to my boy D Rich. He was there when I first started my company, man. He was like employee number 3. You there,
wow.
D Rich?
Wow.
I used to live with him when I was building my house to keep my costs low.
Oh, wow. Okay. You've come a long way, Cedric. All right. So let's get back on track. I want to respect everybody's time. Let's talk about sickle cell anemia. I mean, that's a big issue that's happening in African America. We're going to have to pivot. I know it's a whole different pivot, but it's very critical with our health. as we move forward. I have, let's just pivot to that need here. We have Osha Hudson, Regional Diversity Account Manager, Sickle Cell Disease Program Manager, Biomed Service National Capital and Greater Chesapeake Region. She's attended the University of Maryland College Park. She studied public and community health. She currently serves as a Regional Diversity Account Manager, where she manages and facilitates blood drives to close the gap for sickle cell disease. This role serves as the National Capital Greater Chesapeake Region. The purpose of the role is to close the inadequate blood supply for patients in sickle cell anemia and building partnerships in communities of color to engage and inspire donors from all ethnic groups. Prior to American Red Cross, Ms. Hudson spent 18 years in telecom, where she managed and implemented network infrastructure solutions, Cedric, like yourself, enterprise corporations and national organizations. She's a mother of two. Please give her a round of applause. Osha Hudson.
Thank you so much, Walter. Thank you for having me.
You're amazing, and we're going to hear a lot about you. I love your passion too. You're like a mini Cedric. Once you get rolling on your American Red Cross, your passion is off the chain. Now, this brother from a different planet, Wesley Webb, MBA, he's the current president of the 100 Black Men of America. Much like myself, I formed the chapter here in Prince George's County. He's a federal employee. What's with all these federal workers here, Tim Adams? Federal employee, Homeland Security. His career spans numerous federal agencies in the District of Columbia, even in Europe. Mr. Webb was an Army veteran, served 5.5 years in Landstuhl Regional Medical Center in Germany. While serving in Germany, he deployed in Saudi Arabia in support of Operation Desert Storm. Was awarded the Southwest Asian Service Medal, I can't speak, and 2 Bronze Stars. Mr. Webb, dedicated to serving the community, he currently serves as the president of 100 Black Men. He's a member of the Beta Psi Theta fraternity. He's also completed a dual master's program in the business administration and also from the University of College. He's received a Bachelor of Science of Criminal Justice from the University of Maryland. And he's also has a book out, When Men Lead In, We All Win. Give it up for Mr. Wesley Webb. Wesley Webb. How are you, Wesley? Unmute yourself.
Yes. Good evening, Walter, and thank you very much for that intro and everything. It's definitely great to be a part of this panel discussion this evening. And also, just like we're talking about, we're focusing on health and wellness here with sickle cell anemia, but the 100 also focuses on economic empowerment. So what Cedric was talking about was very central to what we're looking to do in our own communities as well. But as they say, though, and Osha may echo it, your health is your wealth. If you don't have anything else, your health will take you down. So this is definitely something that we're going to have to be focused on in our communities and helping Black men, women, children of all walks of life to understand the importance of their health and through this giving blood.
Yeah.
Is this sickle cell anemia, which is going to be very central to us because this is a disease that really impacts us, quite a bit. And Osha has brought it to our attention, and we have gotten on the bandwagon with her. When I say we, as the 100, we're here to back her and making sure that, we get this message across. And Dr. Dyer is actually on the call.
Oh, yes.
He's definitely involved in the process, and also Kenneth Hayward. So we're going to definitely be making sure that folks in our community understand the importance of giving blood.
Yeah. Thank you, Wesley. So, Osha, can you just give them a little elevator speech about why it's so important to donate blood in the shortage piece and Sickle Cell Anemia Awareness Month?
Absolutely. So again, and thank you for that, Wes. Everything that Wes said is spot on. Before I kind of go into the strategic partnership that we have reignited with the 100 Black Men of America, I just want to quickly give everybody an overview of sickle cell disease. What I've found is many people think they know what it is, or they've heard of it, or they don't really think about it and the impact that it has on the community. So I'll start with that. Sickle cell disease is a genetic disease. that predominantly impacts African Americans in the United States. It is a world disease. It was first discovered in Africa as a genetic mutation that was really a built-in protection. It shortly after that emerged in India. From India, it made its way to the Mediterranean, which is why you have a lot of Italian and Greek people that also carry this trait and have this condition. And it also impacts the South and Central Americas as well as the Caribbean. So it's a world issue, but in the United States of America, it has somehow developed a stigma of being the Black disease. So I really want to talk about that because I think that lack of awareness and the disconnect has really contributed to sickle cell disease now being what the medical community calls the silent killer, because so many of us don't talk about it. Meanwhile, so many of us are dying from this condition. And to put it in a deeper perspective, 1 in 13 of us carry the trait. We could easily look at the 22 of us on here and figure out which 1 or 2, maybe 3 of us that might have that trait. That's how prevalent sickle cell disease is. And in order to create a baby, both parents would have to carry the trait. So what it essentially does, it's a blood disorder. That's why blood donations and sickle cell disease go hand in hand, because the components of the blood that's meant to carry oxygen to your body, to your brain, to your vital organs, to all of your tissues is now clotted and clumped and misshapen. So normal round biconclave shaped red blood cells are now sickled, kind of like a half moon. And that's where the term sickle came from. Okay. Yeah, it was first discovered back in 1910 in the United States. It's actually the oldest disease, the oldest genetic disease ever discovered in this country, and the only disease that we've made literally no progress with. We just when I say we, I mean the scientific community, use sickle cell as the poster disease to really put CRISPR and gene editing to the test. We had a successful gene editing process, but it's not a procedure that will be readily available to the community. It's not FDA approved. It's very experimental right now. And we don't even want to get into the cost of something like CRISPR technology. So right now, the community is relying on blood donations in order to sustain patients battling sickle cell disease and even cancer and lupus and even diabetes that's gone so severe and mistreated where now we have to amputate, or a diabetic patient loses other parts of their mobility based on that. So blood is very key, and it's imperative for a strong community. And what we found is that the Black community uses a big chunk of the blood pool, but we're not really contributing to that blood pool. And what that leads to is patients with sickle cell disease now develops complications that really impacts their quality of life. It speeds up it shortens their lifespan, because right now the blood supply that we're providing is predominantly from the Caucasian community, but it is not the ideal match. Blood is like hair texture, eye color. A lot of these things are genetic. And a lot of people say, well, Osha, what's the big deal? Blood is blood. If the white folks are donating, let's leave that to them. Well, this is not their responsibility. This is on us as a community, because the components that we need from an ethnic match perspective are only exclusively found in the Black community and the Latino community. Every now and again, you'll have a Caucasian person that has these components, which is an eye opener for them, because now they can really say, oh, I guess I do have some African ethnicity and lineage in my bloodline, because you can take the folks out the continent or out of the country, but you can't take that genetic profile away. So right now, we're dealing with sickle cell disease collectively as a community and as a nation, because there is something that can be done. And it's something as simple as donating blood in order to sustain and protect and value the lives of those patients that are literally suffering in silence, because it's something the Black community doesn't understand. So we don't even talk about it amongst each other. We tend to suffer in silence and just kind of deal with it without that support system that we really need as a community.
Osha, what she just said, suffer in silence. Boy, is that applicable, Wesley, with Black people for the last 200 years, suffer in silence. And we got to open our mouths. We got to educate ourselves. Michael Settles and Dr. Danner, We got to find a way to get information. So why are we more prevalent to have sickle cell anemia? Is it just our makeup, our DNA?
We're more prevalent to carry the trait and to have sickle cell disease because that is a part of our lineage. It's a part of the genetic of Africans that are now in America called African American or Black Americans. That's why it's very prevalent you go to Jamaica, Barbados, Guyana, these are very prevalent in those communities as well. But in our country, because we don't test for the trait, we continue to procreate and produce offspring with the disease. And that's where the American Red Cross is really doing a concerted effort to give back to the community in this way by now providing sickle cell trait testing for those that come out and donate blood, because you do want to know that. It's vital information. It's huge insight into your medical profile. And most importantly, it'll help you make more informed decisions as you go through life.
So for folks out there listening, we are interviewing and talking about the American Red Cross, and also as it relates to sickle cell anemia with Osha Hudson and Wesley Webb about the significance of giving blood. So what can people do? Where can they go? And there's so many questions in my mind. Where can they go to donate their blood?
So right now, at least let's talk about the certain regions that have the biggest impact. So Maryland in general is the second highest impacted area in the country with patients battling sickle cell disease. And we have the least amount of donors from the Black community, which is, in my perspective, as a Black person and a resident that had lived in Bowie for over 20 years, the education and the affluent communities are there, but we haven't made this a part of our agenda as a community to give back. This is the one thing that I think the more we talk about it and hold ourselves accountable, we will be the key to close that gap, because donating blood is a very simple procedure and a lot of people don't think that their blood matters. But if Black lives matter, they have to matter beyond social injustices. They have to matter beyond the wealth gap. They also have to matter where health disparities exist. And that's where this platform comes in. And that's why I'm so grateful to partner with 100 Black Men, because the understanding is there. So we have metabolic disorders, genetic disorders. This is a genetic disorder. This is not a disorder or a disease that is by way of decisions that we make and lifestyle choices. These are people born with a condition that they have no control over. But if we get ahead of it and we become blood donors, not only are we saving lives and contributing to strengthening our community, but we know for sure our blood will be prioritized for those patients that end up getting opioids instead of a blood transfusion. And that's just frankly unacceptable in an environment where if you know better, you do better. So we're trying to help people understand that a blood donation leads to treatment for a patient that literally is relying on the generosity of the community. Otherwise, they will suffer and they will receive blood products that are not the ideal match, but something's better than nothing, but it's still not the proper blood profile that patient needs.
Osha, explain to them the duration, what happens to your body, and how many pints do you give when you donate blood? I think a lot of people don't even understand that.
Right, great question. So you donate 1 pint, but that 1 pint can save 3 lives. Yeah. So we may take the red blood cells, which is what the sickle cell patient gets. We'll take that goes to that sickle cell patient. Platelets, that goes to a cancer patient. Plasma, that can go to somebody that's suffering with severe COVID-19 if the antibodies are in the plasma, or it can go to burn victims. It's used to transfuse other parts of medical procedures. So that's why we tell our donors, your blood donation, 1 pint can save up to 3 lives, because we do have to separate the components of the blood for the use. And that's predominantly what the main use in the medical environment is: platelets and red blood cells. And Dr. Banner and Dr. Mcgee and multiple doctors on this call could attest to that. And I'm sure they have seen, even in trauma, people present with a sickle cell crisis because now their condition is so severe that they're in the emergency room because they're doing what we call a sickle cell crisis, which means everything is shutting down in their body and it's beyond the pain threshold. So there's there's some stigmas here that we can't address as a nonprofit, the American Red Cross. We can't address the stigma. We're counting on the advocate of the community and Black health disparities to really vocalize the fact that these patients still face discrimination.
Let me pivot to Dr. Mcgee. I'm not sure if he's in the ER. Dr. Mcgee, can you have any comments on that? Are you working with a patient, Dr. Mcgee?
Yeah, I can comment off camera. My comments are from a different perspective. Moesha eloquently stated the rationale on the sickle cell side, but if you guys all recall, we were shut down for 1.5 years, so no one was doing anything. So we already were at a shortage of blood, and then now we stopped receiving the blood that we were getting. And so now when you look at it I'm an ER doc from an ER perspective, and think about it, there are a bunch of smaller, hospitals that are in urban environments that don't have the resources that large institutions have, who are suffering dramatically from not having the amount of blood products they need. And so someone is not only not saying even being shot, but if you're in a car accident, if you fall and have significant injury and you're bleeding, have a hip pelvic fracture, you're losing a whole bunch of blood. So you're coming to me, your blood count, your blood pressure is 60s over 30. The first thing I'm doing is giving you type O blood. And if I don't have it, you will definitely die. And that blood sustains your life until you get to the operating room and they can figure out where the blood is coming from and can prevent the blood from flowing out. Otherwise, if you don't have, the blood products to get you to the operating room, you may as well not even go to the hospital. You should just die in the street, because that's essentially what's happening. And not only for trauma, but also for pregnant women who are having miscarriages, or pregnant women who are having ectopic pregnancies. A lot of times when that ectopic pregnancy ruptures, that person's losing, almost 1 liter or 2 of blood in their pelvic area. You don't even know what's happening. And then they're hypotensive, and then now they need blood products. And then not to mention, GI bleeders and people that drink extensively who don't know they have ulcers that rupture. So it's a whole bunch of rationales for why, 100 Black Men of America has partnered with American Red Cross for this same fact. It's not only the sickle cellers, but, everybody. And we're trying to put it in that light that, Black people need to recognize that it's not just sickle cellers who need blood products. It could be your relatives, your cousin, your brother who's in one of these major emergencies. And so I think what we're doing and what you're doing even today is to be spoken for, and we're trying to make a difference all across the country. So
thank you, Dr. Mcgee. Dr. Danner, do you have any comments on that?
Yeah, just to piggyback on what Dr. Mcgee said, and thank you, Miosha. Thanks, Dr. Mcgee. As a trauma surgeon, at Grady, we're the ones who are here, and we take them up from the emergency room, the blood pressure of over 60, looking at the trauma numbers. And, again, if you had 10 people that got shot, 9 of them will be Black, and probably 8.5 of them will be a Black male. So it's a very significant problem, but there's something called the massive transfusion protocols. When that pressure comes in low and they're bleeding, we activate the system, and the massive transfusion protocol really constitutes, basically means reconstituting that blood into whole blood by giving the red blood cells, the platelets, and the plasma at a 1-to-1-to-1 ratio. So we give a lot of blood really fast and operate against the clock to see if we can stop it. And sometimes we're not successful. In some of the worst cases, we've gone through 200 units of blood, and the patient still didn't make it. So blood is very precious, a very valuable asset and resource in there. But like you said, there are other conditions that require it. So, there's a lot of reasons that, blood is important for human survival. So what Miosha is doing is very critical and a very important message. But one thing that I wanted to just kind of piggyback and say, back to what Wes said at the beginning, and Miosha has kind of really reinforced is, your health is your wealth. And just from everybody on the call, at the sound or the end of my voice, that one of the greatest investments you can make is in your own health, and basically getting out of the mindset of devaluing yourself, but devaluing us as a community, that this is a reinvestment in the African-American community. And a lot of people think, I can't do anything, I'm helpless, but there is something that you can do, but you have to listen, hear, and understand, and then act. So I just want to leave you with that and a parting thought and shout back to you, Osha and Walter. So thank you guys. Great job, everybody.
Thank you, Dr. Danner. You're the soothsayer, buddy. I tell you, you should run for office, buddy.
Thank you, Dr. Danner, for that.
So what other comments or concerns that you have, Osha, that we should be focused on right now as people of color? What else should we be doing?
Absolutely. So what I would like to say, and I think this is really important, and Dr. Danner hit on it, how we devalue ourselves. We think I have diabetes, I can't donate. I have hypertension or high blood pressure, I can't donate. Those metabolic or those chronic conditions, if they're under control and they're being treated, you can donate blood. You got a tattoo, you can donate blood. We just really need to shift the narrative and adjust and find a way to heal all at the same time. There's some historical trauma there. We get that. We are not the first people to line up where there's a needle, let alone a medical team involved. So that's where I come in. My collaboration with community leaders is because we're counting on these platforms to mobilize and ignite the community. We're working closely with a lot of the mega Black churches, Reed Temple being one of them. They've been a good partner to us for many, many years before they knew that this whole big focus on sickle cell was even an issue. So that's what we're looking for. We're looking for influencers in the community that has access to space, that would be willing to utilize their resources where we know the folks will come. We lost a lot of blood donors, like Dr. Mcgee said, during COVID, because the only way for most of them to donate was through their employer. A lot of folks working at Bank of America, BG&E, Leidos, Oracle. These have been major partners to us and also big employers of Black people. So that lifeline was essentially cut. So now we're working with community-based organizations, faith-based organizations, property owners, we have retail partners that are standing with us to, if nothing else, they can provide us with the space and then they leave it up to us to focus on making sure we have a diverse event. And that's essentially what we're asking. We just need to make sure we're at the table and we're showing up for this, because that is where the gap is and that is where the need is. And last thing I'll say on this is, Dr. Mcgee also hinted on this, the O-negative blood. We have more occurrences of O-negative blood in our community than any other ethnicities. Latinos, we come in almost neck and neck with the Latino community. 53% of them O-negative. The Black community, 49% of us are O-negative blood type. And then you'll find about 30% of the Caucasian population. But we need to diversify the blood supply so that if there's a rare condition or a specific component, we've got enough donors to be able to account for the patients of all walks of life. But we just have to be intentional. And someone on this call said it, I think it was Remy, we have to be intentional, even with our decision to donate blood, because that's how we give back. Most of that blood stays right in the community. If we don't have it in DC, we're shipping it from our blood center in Oakland. If Oakland needs a component, we're sending it from Philly, DC, Alabama. That's the beauty of finding a Red Cross blood drive and rolling up your sleeves and turning your awareness into action. We have Reed Temple, which is a blood program partner with the 100 Black men. That's happening on September 16th. You have an opportunity to give back. We're partnering with Omega Psi Phi Fraternity. They have really tried to take the lead on this, and we're doing a huge blood drive at Bowie Bay Sox on September 29th for several local children right in Bowie that's suffering and already developing complications because the transfusions they have received have not been an ethnic match. These are faces of our children, and I think investing in health can lead to wealth because they go hand in hand, and that's why this is so perfect. I think we can chew gum and walk at the same time, and that is how every great movement starts. You have to start somewhere. And what keeps me up at night, since Cedric shared what keeps him up at night, is the understanding the heavy lift that we have. It's a culture shift. And I cannot do it alone. And my only obligation to the American Red Cross, because I spent my first 5 years making sure blood was in the community. Now I have to focus on making sure that there's a specific group of donors so that we can make sure that those patients that have been suffering and not properly treated now have access we want to talk about equity. Where's the equity in the blood supply? It's not possible if we're not coming together as a community to own this. And this is something that we can do together, and we'll learn our blood type. You'll learn if you have that trait. You'll also be able to know that you're helping 3 patients, whether they are at Johns Hopkins or whether they're at Grady or whether they're at Baylor. You get that insight after you donate blood.
Miosha, I just got a thought. How many people on this line know their blood type? Raise your hand.
I know mine.
Okay. So you can get your blood type also. How often can you do donate your blood?
Every 56 days. Every 56 days, you can donate blood. Sometimes, folks have low iron, and that's very common in communities of color. So we always make sure we prep folks on how to prepare to donate. You got to hydrate. You got to leave that sweet tea alone. You got to drink water and eat, kale and a lot of leafy green products to get your iron up, even if it's just to donate. Then you can go have your sweet tea, but then that leads to other things, and I'll let the National Health Committee talk about that. But we don't want to be guiding folks to diabetes. But in general, though, really, in all honesty, every 56 days, and that's why we're committed to calling you in case you forget that you're eligible. My folks on this line that donate with the Red Cross, they know all about those phone calls.
That's right.
And that's because we have to be good stewards of this precious resource. Once again, like Dr. Mcgee and Dr. Deb said, this is precious because we can't make it in the lab. We can't manufacture this. We can only get blood from another willing, courageous, generous human being that's willing to save the lives of folks that they may not ever meet. But that's okay.
Right. Is Paul Dyer there? Are you still on the line, Paul?
I am. I'm here. Thank you so much.
Would you make some comments, Dr.
I do. One of the things, Miosha would never pat herself on the back, but she is just an amazing powerhouse. I'm so glad to be a partner with her because I call her all the time. Don't I, Miosha?
You do. And you and Mr. West, you guys have been my backbone. I will tell you, I wouldn't have been able to do this without knowing I've got folks like you guys that's got my back.
But one of the things that, we also have the blue tag. So when you donate, you can blue tag your blood. That means it's coming from an African-American and it will go to an African-American. So that is very important. Also, when we talk about health and wealth, right?
Mm-hmm.
Let's think of it this way. If you're unable to save a life, why would you want to save your money? There's a correlation with people in an emotional, when you talked about, is this a slavery issue? There's an emotional component to this and a scientific component that says, I'm unable to create wealth if I'm unable to ever create my own life and help another life. There's nothing in between. So if you want people to learn how to make wealth, and there's only 3 to 6% of people who actually are going to go to these seminars and say, I want to change my money. I want to create wealth. But there's still, 80% of the people who has never been to wealth, has never seen wealth. That's why the 100 Black Men, who I'm proudly a part of, that says if they don't, they'll see what they will be. So if they don't see Black people donating blood, they're not going to donate blood. If they don't see Black people or Black educators, they're not going to be there. So how do we show them that they are theirs when we show up? There's a lot of organizations all across the country that said they're for Black people and Black communities, and they're not showing up. And that's really what bothers me. If you say you're for Black, then show up and do something helpful. Like donate blood so you can save a life. Do something helpful like put on a health welfare seminar so people can understand how to make the money. There's a lot of work we do on the back ends of when it comes to getting people to donate. It rubs me the wrong way when I see more Caucasians donate for our community, and then we're wondering why we cannot save our own community from a wealth disparity, from an education disparity, and also from a health disparity. It's sad. And so us as leaders, community leaders, people who have reach down, each one teach one, and say, come on, brother, let's do this. Let's do this for our wealth, for our health, and for our community. That's all I want to say.
Wow, Dr. Dyer, that was amazing. Just good stuff. So does anybody have any questions Of any of our doctors at all, guys, raise your hand at all. Don't be quiet. Anybody?
Well, I just had one kind of
Sure.
comment and thought, and maybe Wes Cedric can kind of comment on this. And we've talked about health and talked about wealth and something that the doctor just finished talking about. So appreciate it, Paul. And that is something that I've learned lately, and it's the importance of education in this process, kind of like we're doing now, but also in business education and learning to keep this wealth, understanding how business is done, how money is made, but how money is kept is just as important. And as I've kind of gone through this process and evolution, we don't know what we don't know. And that's why I was kind of directing it to Wes, maybe Cedric, but particularly Wes, because he's finished it 2 times. And it's so key to understand how this whole system, whether it's finance and accounting or operation supply chain or information systems and technology, and how all these things come together with strategy. Because in order for us to be successful, what Osha is saying, there has to be strategy. You have to go through a lot of planning and have the right systems in place for this. So I just wanted to kind of bring that up, because sometimes we leave that out and say, you're going to work and just make all this money, but there is a lot to the way business systems work to basically really be successful and sustain it. And so I think somebody like Wes could really kind of comment on that, to kind of link all this together with the health and the wealth, but that educational component as well.
Yeah, and Dr. Danner, I commend you. You're a doctor, and now you're going to get your business degree. This is what we have to do more of as African Americans and people of color, is diversify our background. So I commend you, brother, on challenging yourself in a different light. I know we talk about that quite a bit. Does anybody else have any comments at all about any topics? Go ahead, Anthony Lane, my motivational speaker, brother.
Hey, thanks, like Walter. Miss Moesha, hopefully I'm saying that correctly. When is a drive being held and just for this to give for sickle cell?
Every blood drive that I put on are held just for sickle cell. We don't exclude non-Black donors. We open it up to the public. And this is one of the things Dr. Dyer is talking about. What we're finding is that we go through all the legwork, we get a partner, we get a church that agrees to let us in, but it's a matter of getting the folks to show up. And if the blood drive specifically says sickle cell awareness into action, that blood drive is in the community to make sure that event collects for patients with sickle cell disease. So they're kind of all over. I'm not sure where you are, Mr. Lane, but
I would come and meet you if you're within the DMV area. Within 100 miles, I will come.
See, that's what I'm talking about.
I'm
engagement.
Right here in the DMV, and one of the biggest things that I'm really trying to get people to understand is that we have to meet people where they are. And right now, if we can't promote blood drives on social media and amplify it just like we would for any other event, there's a huge opportunity we're missing. So I think the strategy is important, and I would love for us to look at what the Jewish community did with Tay-Sachs disease, another rare disease that they beat because they came together as a community and they started getting tested for that trait. They were losing too many folks in their community, babies dying, barely making it to the age of 5. And what they realize is we have to do better as a community. And I'm hoping that the Black and the African American community and the Latino community, because they're the second hardest hit with sickle cell disease, that we will look at health the way we look at collaborating to bring our wealth, working together, keeping that dollar in the community for more than those 6 hours, keeping that dollar collectively in the community. The same thing applies to health. But it starts with sharing that information. And it also starts with our leaders being willing to open up their space to host these events like Reed Temple and our allies, our allies, that you don't have to be Black to be a part of this, because we need all hands on deck. But the one hand that has to be us is the blood part.
Yeah. So
hold on. To answer your question, Anthony, also is wherever you at, let me know where you at, and I'll make sure we get a blood drive next door to your house. I don't care where you are. We need to find a place. Really, no matter where you at, let me know so we can set up a blood drive in your house. that is what we want to do. We're grateful that you drive 100 miles, but you're only one of you. If we put it near you in your neighborhood, maybe you get 10 of you. So that's more important for us, right? So that's the key. So thank you so much for driving, but contact us. Let us know. We'll get you. You can get your name, my name from Walter, or whatever. Contact me, Osha, and we will put one in your neighborhood. We just got to knock on doors, and that's the issue. We knock on a lot of doors, going, and I knock on a lot of doors. Everywhere I go, I'm knocking on the door to say, "Hey, would you host one?" They're like, "Whoa!"
Right.
And I literally do it all the time. I don't care where I'm at. I look at a space. I turn sideways, turn left or right, and I pick up my bat phone and call me Osha and say, "I got a space."
Paul, why the passion, Paul? Why do you have this passion?
So two things. One, I have sickle cell, right? So I collected, and I got malaria when I was deployed, and then I have a granddaughter who also has sickle cell. But besides the fact, this is the easy black on black crime, and I say it all the time. This is something we can stop, like Tay-Sachs. We can prevent this if we do we. We always talking about buy black. That's easy. To give my money is easy, but to save a life, we always talking about we losing lives. We lose lives to trauma. We lose lives to getting gunshots. We losing lives all the time. We're losing more lives than people vote. So if we can't save a life, it don't matter how many people are showing up to the polls, because we're not going to elect anyone, because there ain't going to be no one left. So how can we gain wealth if we're losing life? I'm kind of confused about that. So that my passion is our people and the segregation of economics and education. And this is part of that economic and education separation. We need to develop this to be better from the ground up. Like Mr. Cedric said, from 0 to 100, we need to do this all the way through. So that's my passion.
Walter, I have a question I can ask Moesha, Dr. Paul. I mean, I'm pretty sure this has been tried, but have they tried incentive-based tactics? And the reason why I say that, I do completely understand your challenges of, getting people donating. And now with COVID, people are afraid to basically do anything. People are afraid to do anything that could potentially put them at risk or give them exposure to things that they're not comfortable with. I was just wondering, have they tried incentives? Because I mean, this is kind of a funny but not so funny story. I know of students who would donate blood to have money to have campus, and then on campus to have extra money because they're young and they think that they're full of life. So just a thought about that. Have they thought about incentives, and is there ways to do that?
Yes, great question, Mr. Nash. We have thought about incentives. Like I said, we went to the table for about 1.5 years before rolling this out this aggressively. And what we found from the focus groups, donors and non-donors, leaders and non-leaders, is exactly what you said: incentivize me. We have FDA rules. We can't pay people for donating blood, but our partners have stepped up. Amazon has set aside a $5 million generous gift. That's just for phase 1. For us to convert that into gift cards. So we have done what we've never in the history of blood collections have done, but these are only for blood drives that I'm running or a counterpart that's equivalent to me in one of the other states. Not only are donors getting $20 incentive gift cards, but the partners that host the blood drive, every blood drive that they host, they get an additional $200 thank you gift card from Amazon. So we've listened, we've brought this to the table, we've answered that kind of, what if you did this? Well, now we're doing it. And we have donors that are enjoying those perks and those benefits because we want them to come back. So we're a nonprofit, I was just out responding to a disaster in Annapolis. So even beyond blood, my job as a humanitarian goes beyond this. But we also, as a nonprofit organization, are very limited. Every dollar that comes to us, 90 cents of that goes right back into the community in the form of disaster relief. So when we have partners that are providing those incentives, it really makes it easier for us to do something like sickle cell trait testing, which is very costly, and it's a huge commitment that we made. And my goal is to make sure that our people are taking advantage of it. What I would hate is for the Red Cross in 1 year or 2 say, we're done with sickle cell trait testing, nobody took advantage of it. We can't manage that overhead for this additional screening on our extensive testing that we already do on blood. So we don't want to lose this. We want to use it before we lose it. And we have the incentives now to motivate the donors. We just need to amplify that we have this through platforms like Mr. Kirkland's platform, your platform, folks with followers that have influence in the community that can say, hey, I put my stamp of approval on this, you need to support it. And that's where the churches have been very instrumental in helping us get there. And we have a lot of work to do. I'm blazing a new trail. This is uncharted territory. We've never gone this hard or this aggressive before, but we realize the impact that it's had on the medical community and the patients. That's what this is all for.
Neosha, that's a nice segue. Look at your chat. Faith, you want to say a couple words? Tabernacle, they're offering their church to provide space.
Okay.
On Capitol Hill. Are you there, Faith? Tabernacle? You're muted. Okay, we're going to keep it. Go ahead.
I'm going to make a note of that.
Oh, go ahead, sir.
And I just, my name is Pastor White, pastor of Faith Tabernacle. And so was invited by Gerald Barnes, and definitely looking at what are the relevant ways we can connect. So I think even though we're not a huge church edifice per se, but I think the word consistently, I wanted to use that. So if there's a way our space could be utilized,
thank you.
We definitely want to do that.
Thank you.
Thank
Bless you, brother.
So much, Pastor White, and I'll definitely be reaching out to you because it's not about the size. I've had my most successful blood drives with small churches. I grew up in Gethsemane Baptist Church, a very tiny church right next to Enterprise Golf Course. So let me tell you, it's the consistency, and you're going to have people from all over the community find the blood drive, but we're going to rely on Faith Tabernacle to motivate a few of those donors that we need for sickle cell patients. So I'll be in touch with you offline, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Pastor. See, this is what iron sharpens iron. Things are getting done. Cedric Nash and Mayor Adams are going to be putting something together to potentially partner together. Daryl Barnes, did you have something to say, Gerald Barnes? You were raising your hand, Gerald Barnes.
Can you hear me, Walter?
Yeah, we can. Go ahead, sir.
Amazing. You know, all the time, Walter, you make it amazing. And I thank you for all the people that are on the line. One thought that came to my mind is community. And the DC Public Library has some amazing facilities. I'm not sure if that can be utilized, but I definitely have the connection to go find out. And I wondered if you've used the library and thought about the libraries. It's right in the community, so that might be able to help out a whole lot as well.
I agree. Libraries are great. We do a lot outside of DC with the libraries, but I think meeting the people where they are, which is in the community, we're here for it. We'll come out and look at any space that could be, what we're looking for is something that will still allow us to social distance, because I know a lot of people are concerned. They're concerned about COVID, right? Well, we couldn't stop the blood because of COVID. We mitigated our approach. And even today, we're still operating under COVID-19 safety protocols. So it's safe to donate blood. You will not be at risk. Masks are required, and we are enforcing extreme social distancing and appointment only. So we have put steps in place that will allow us to protect the public, protect our partners, protect the donors during these community events, because they're essential.
All right.
And one thing just to add to the the library, they have rooms that have capacity of over 100. So they have large rooms in most of the new libraries now. And like I said, we'll get back to Walter and let him see about the DC libraries, because they definitely need it in Ward 7, 8, and 6, and 5, and 4, 3, 2, 1. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Wow, this has been an amazing evening. I want to thank all of you for even hanging out for 2 hours with me. I really appreciate you all and your great supporters. Let's close this out. Final comments from Cedric Nash. Are you still on, Cedric? Maybe he left.
Hey, Walter.
Yes, go ahead, Dr. Banner.
From a medical standpoint, one thing I wanted to just share from what Osha was saying earlier, and they're just kind of real quickly, just the origin of the sickle cell trait as a protective trait in certain countries, particularly in Africa. where the blood had to circle in order to survive malaria. So it's passed on from that as a survival mechanism. And so now in Black people in America, the primary care physicians, the neonatologists, pediatricians, they too test for sickle cell and sickle cell trait. And it's very important that as parents, as members of the community, that you know your status, just like in the days of HIV, know your status. You should know that of yourself, but also of your children. That information is available. And so what she's doing is really trying to bring awareness, because it does have a significant consequence and impact on the community. And so, we want to make sure we pull in all the resources. So I just wanted to give that little medical tidbit to complement what you were saying. So that's all, just a quick comment.
Thank you, Dr. Danner.
I do want to make a quick thing real quick. Even the people who have sickle cell, when they go to the hospital in a crisis, a lot of doctors don't know that they are sickle cell patients, so they think they're drug seeking. So there's another racial disparity there, because they think they're only there for getting drugs and drug seeking for some other reason. And yet a lot of sickle cell patients are really embarrassed to have a crisis because they feel like they get treated like they are drug addicts. That's it.
Thank you. Dave Dixon.
Yes, Walter, thank you, man. Sorry I was able to jump on.
I
got on a
understand.
little late, right?
That's okay.
Yeah, I have the sickle cell trait. I've been told that I cannot really give blood because of the trait. And I'm just curious as to how many people of color that might have the trait. Some might know it, but some don't. And because of that, there's a hesitancy or lack of willingness to go in to give blood because they know they cannot. So this is a factor that, Osha, I think I'd like to find out what percentage, if we have any statistics on the number of Blacks, why the turnout might be low because of that. Because I would love to give blood, but I know I cannot because of the trait.
Okay, so you can give blood with the trait. I think that's another misconception. I don't know what medical authority ever said that, but it is not true. You can give blood with the trait. We will not transfuse that blood to a sickle cell patient. It can easily go to a cancer patient, a trauma patient, a childbirth complication, because you cannot get sickle cell from the blood. It's not contagious. It is a genetic condition. So a lot of people with the trait have thought in the past, they just excluded themselves and were under the impression that they cannot, but you can donate blood if you have the trait. And we test for that trait extensively. If we have blood from an African-American or Latino donor, those are things that we're looking for before we make that trait or that unit available to a hospital. So just to be clear, because you're probably not the only one that thinks that, you can donate blood with the trait. There's roughly 4 to 5 million people walking around right now with the trait that don't know they have the trait, because a lot of us were born after the sickle cell newborn trait screening panel became law. That's in the late 80s. I was alive and kicking and on my way out of high school. So I would have never known if I wasn't a blood donor. But there's a whole world of us that have no idea, because we were born well after that was established as a medical need. And that's because 1 in 305 Black babies are born with the disease.
Thank you, Miosha. Michelle Mitchell, you have a comment? Unmute yourself.
Hello, how you doing? I was wondering, the gentleman just mentioned the sickle cell trait. What other health restrictions are there, or diseases that would keep you from being able to donate?
So there are some conditions like a blood-borne cancer, for instance. If you are currently receiving cancer treatment, because if you are, you're also receiving blood. So you can't donate if you're actively fighting cancer. But there's very few medical conditions that would prevent you from donating blood. And the handful that would prevent you are more so related to a blood cancer, or you are recently coming off of chemo, and that's because your body is still recovering. So you can certainly still attempt to donate blood with any condition, because having the trait does make you more prone. There's a lot of research still taking place, and according to the NIH, having the trait can make you more prone to Overexertion, so it can be dangerous. It can make you more prone to chronic kidney failure. It can make you more prone to being exposed to COVID and diseases in that family. So there are a lot of reasons to know if you have the trait, even if you're beyond childbearing years, because it can give you a lot of intel. It's like anything else with your genetic profile. We're dialing into genetic profiles these days, and that does include blood. So if you don't have any condition where you've been told specifically a blood cancer, you're good.
Okay. All right, Cedric.
No.
Cedric, are you there? Cedric? Okay, looks like he's multitasking. All right, so we're gonna close this out. I hope this has been engaging for everyone. And let's get some final comments. From Mr. Adams. Unmuted. That button is hard to find. I know the problem, Tim. It's always a. There it is.
Hey, as always, Walter, I'd like to thank you and all the guests, the panelists, but also the opportunity to hear some of the stories, some of the insights, some of the concerns, the questions. Sometimes there were some questions asked tonight that, for example, you were talking about if you have the trait, if you can donate. That would have been something that if someone had told me they had the trait, I would have just automatically thought they weren't able to donate. So it's really important that we get that out to the community. So what I'll just say is, again, thank you to everyone. It's always a pleasure. It's always informative, but more importantly, it's always about us looking out for each other.
Thank you.
And with that, I just said thank you to all of you for the information and the knowledge.
Thank you, Mayor Adams. Thank you for your support and your leadership in the community. Remy, do you have any final comments?
Yeah, just to say thank you for this great platform, for all the comments. And I learned some things about the blood drive. I didn't know some of those answers. Like everybody has spoken, I know better, and we'll do better. When we know better, we do better. I'm very excited about what Cedric and the team on the real estate and the wealth creation platform is going to be doing. Mayor Adams, I want to be part of whatever is coming up. I want to be able to use the skill, the talents that I'm passionate about to help to create wealth here in Prince George's County.
Thank you, Remy, and good luck with your campaign. You're going to do very well. Dr. Paul Dyer, any final comments?
No, I just want to say thank you, Walter. You know, even though you are Syracuse, it's fine. And
no, I went to Rutgers.
That's right, Rutgers. That's right.
On,
yeah.
Rutgers. Go ahead.
Thank you so much for having this. This is really great because we need it. We need more of it, and you're providing it. And leaders like you really make a difference in our community. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Paul, for your passion, brother. I appreciate you. Dr. Danner, any final comments?
No, I just want to commend you and Cedric and Moesha and all the speakers, Dr. Dyer. It's been an incredible, seminar. I know it took a little time. A lot of information is powerful. And we just leave with a parting shot. Knowledge of the power, application of knowledge is, and there's a difference between the two.
Well, wonderful. Thank you for your leadership, sir. Wesley Webb, sir, your final comments.
All let's say, Walter, is thank you for setting up this forum. You know, the exchange of ideas and information that was flowing on here. This is what's great, and we take it back to our communities and educate them, because when we do that, we just come up together. And I really appreciate you setting up this forum.
Well, as you say, Wesley, when we lean in, right, Wesley?
That's right, brother.
Yeah. Osha, what's your comments, final comments?
First of all, thank you, Mr. Walter, for putting this together. I think health and wealth, they go hand in hand. And so I think this is perfect to be able to leverage this platform. And the final thing that I would say is, when in doubt, give it a try. Don't let doubts and hearsay keep you from donating blood. Don't let the past keep you from donating blood. It's a new day, it's a new dawn, and I'm here. and everyone here at the American Red Cross are fully committed to continuing to prove ourselves to the community and earn that trust. And so thank you again for allowing me to share the need and you guys supporting and amplifying this.
And Osha, give them that date again for the Reed Temple and the location.
Absolutely. So we'll be running a blood drive specifically dedicated to patients with sickle cell disease on September 16th. That will be at Reed Temple Church, and we'll be running that blood drive between the hours of 1:30 to 7. A lot of folks in our community push back because they're like, it needs to be on a Saturday or late at night. Well, this is in the evening, early evening, so it should work hopefully for most folks' schedule, but it's in Glendale. Hopefully folks just look up Reed Temple AME, you'll find it, or if you just go to redcrossblood.org, you can put in the sponsor code, it's Reed Temple. If you missed that one, please join us at Bowie Baysock Center on September 29th and donate blood for Sydney, a young, amazing, courageous, brilliant child right in the heart of Bowie that is battling sickle cell disease. But we need to rally behind our youth, and I'm counting on you guys and appreciate you all. Thank you in advance.
Osha, you're a beast. You're very passionate.
Yeah. Hey, Walter.
Yes, David.
Is there any kind of invitation that could be text to people? If everybody on this call would receive every time you do a drive in the specific DMV area.
That's right. That's where Walter comes in. That's where Walter comes in. He's my plug for that, because you all are in his network. I can't reach you in my network, on my LinkedIn or my social media. So that's why these partnerships are key. I'm counting on Mr. Kirkland. I'm counting on Dr. Dyer and Wes and Mr. Hayward to continue to promote these events. I give the whole rundown of what's happening in the county, what's happening in the area, to give people multiple opportunities. But guys, help us make this Reed Temple blood drive a success. Right now, we only have 12 people scheduled to donate, and this is September, Sickle Cell Awareness Month. That's the blood drive I expect to be filled up before we're 6 days out from the blood drive. So let's save this event. Let's show up and show out for the community, and let's make sure we're thinking about our people in that same breath.
And Dave, maybe we set up a group chat or something that we can get these blasts. We'll do something like that. I think that's effective. Go ahead. Oh, he's back. Oh, the elusive Cedric Nash is back. Okay.
I've been here,
The soothsayer. Go ahead, Cedric.
So, Terry, were you suggesting that Moesha has a list of people that they inform, like an email list or email blast? Is that what you were suggesting, Terry?
Yeah. Well, yeah. Dave was suggesting that every time she does an event, we get an e-blast to know, or text to say it's happening. That way we can get engaged and get engaged with people.
I thought I heard that. I was wondering, Moesha, would you be willing, or would you be able to maintain a email list of people, like your own list, to inform when you have something coming out that might trigger people to potentially come out? And then the other question I asked you about the incentives, and I was wondering, the follow-up question was, have you found that the incentives work?
I think they are working. They're trying out more of the non-Black donors, because I can't do reverse Jim Crow, right? So I have to promote the incentive, and then suddenly that blood drive is filled up, and then there might be 3 or 4 Black folks that show up. So it's a matter of tapping into these partnerships. I'm counting on the 100 Black men to tap into your networks to get the people out, because that's why the Red Cross took this approach. We tried it on our own. It was not a success. So we're leading from the back on this one by having the faith-based leaders, the community-based leaders, the Divine Nine, the organizations that profess to be here for the betterment and advancement of Black people, including the NAACP. So we're counting on you guys to tap into those networks when I share the event. My only ask is that you please share the event, and that you encourage those in your circle to get behind it, and to show up and show out. I'm working with athletes across the country. I'm working with multiple NFL teams that have all been hit by sickle cell disease one way or the other. So we don't want this to be suffering in silence anymore. We can rally behind it. We can step up and stand by the side and the back and the front of the folks that are suffering, because if not us, who?
No more suffering in silence. I think that's the way to end this conference. And
Oh,
Cedric,
somebody made a comment. Yes, Cedric, I do have partners like BG&E and Leidos and Oracle. They are matching, and they're giving PTO, they're giving special incentives. They are essentially paying their employees to donate. But I need to get into the community because all Black folks don't have those fancy jobs, right? I need to meet the people where they are, and that's in the church or that's in the community, like the other gentleman said, get to the library where folks don't need to worry about needing a car to get there. So yeah, we're going, you know, we've got folks that have DE&I objectives. They can't bring us the people, but they're willing to incentivize the folks within their organization to do the right thing.
so let's pivot back to Cedric on the business side, the Black Wealth Summit, and that piece, Cedric. I mean, really thank you for your presentation today. I think it was very engaging. Any final comments as it relates to that, Cedric?
No, this is all great. I love the health and the wealth conversation. You know, there's no wealth without health. And that's the only thing you have taken in retirement is your health. So, you know, they're all very, very relevant. You know, my only just closing remarks is that, you know, it's, you know, one of the challenges that we have, and I try to address even in my book, is really just getting us to reassess the things that we value. Because health and wealth and spirituality are these things that if we value them, we make them a priority. And the reason why we struggle with some of these things have a lot to do with the things that we value. And we have to reassess what are the things that are important to us, what are our priorities. And when you find that people are lacking in health, it's because their priorities are something else. So it's just the final thought. It's one of the things I look at, because when I wrote the book, I was saying there's a lot of books on personal finance, there's a lot of books on wealth. Why aren't we more financially literate? Why don't we have more wealth literacy? And and I kind of came with the idea that a lot of times we kind of desire what wealth gives us, not actual wealth itself, right? So our priorities are centered around the things that we can do with wealth as opposed to having wealth. And so that made me really rethink about, well, how do you get people to want this thing? How do you get people to want wealth as opposed to what wealth gets you? And it really is centered around our values and our priorities, which are really centered around our community and our environment. And the people that we surround ourselves with. So, sorry to ramble on, but those are the thoughts that come to my mind. I'm really happy to be a part of this, and thank you guys for the platform.
Well, I don't know what to say, guys. I really respect all of you. This has been an amazing experience, and we have to do more of this, Cedric and Osha and Wesley, because I think information is power. Would you agree? I think transparency is power. I think cross-pollination is power. But now we have to do it as a Black community, Black and brown people. We have to kind of let our ego down, and I think that's been the challenge. Would you guys agree? We got to find a way. Iron sharpens iron. So on behalf of Kirkland's Corner, I want to thank all of you. Give yourself a round of applause. And we will see you on the other side. God bless all of you. And one more thing, come out to our golf event, Call Tuts on the Line, with the 100 Black Men, October 4th. The people in the DMV come out to support the 100 Black Men, right, Call?
Come on. It's becoming bigger and better every minute as we lead up to October 4th. So come on out. Even if you don't golf, come on out.
Correct. We'll have 9 golfing experiences. The Honorable Jesse Jackson will be attending. He did have COVID. He just got his papers released. He's healthy. As Moesha is shaking her head, he's doing fine. When he gave me that call yesterday, I was beside myself. I fell on the floor.